Mahomes. Let's talk some Chiefs. Welcome to Monday Mornings with the Chief of the North. I'm Seth Kaiser, the Chief of the North. It's good to see you all. Sorry, I missed you all on Thursday. I was in trial. I appreciate your patience. Sometimes the day job just interferes with basically everything we do. But what didn't get interfered with on Sunday, that's right, we're doing professional segues now, was the Chiefs winning against the Broncos for the 15th consecutive time, which is absolutely hilarious and one of my very favorite things. That means I get to continue because now that's the second game of the year, which means they won't play again for multiple months, which means that number just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And so my favorite bit, one of my favorite bits, is every year before the season, counting how many days it's been since the Broncos have beaten the Chiefs. And every year it gets funnier because the last time the Chiefs lost to the Broncos, I mean, it was I believe it was 2015 or 2014, I want to say. So you get the lines, Barack Obama was president. The Marvel Cinematic Universe only had like 2 movies out. There's just so many great jokes that go along with it. Once again, Denver gave Kansas City all they could handle, this time for a little bit different reasons. So there's a few things I want to talk about today. Patrick Mahomes did not have his best performance. He missed on multiple throws that he normally hits. I want to talk about Mahomes' accuracy lately. It's something that I'm going to be diving into this week. Obviously, he's the best quarterback in the game. He did have an off day against Denver, but it was kind of interesting when you go back and rewatch, looking at the why. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Talk about the defense, especially Chris Jones, a little bit about Kadarius Toney and what he adds to the table that I think we saw beyond just being the gadget guy. Something that the Chiefs offense, I think, needs right now in terms of a spark plug. So there's a lot to cover, not a lot of time to cover it. And so if you can, make sure to do all the YouTube things. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, maybe throw a comment in there if you want, if you're feeling extra crazy. But in the meantime, let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. So Mahomes' final stats against the Broncos were very good. He threw for multiple touchdowns. He threw for over 300 yards. He only had 1 pick. But when you rewatch the game, even taking frustration out of it or the impact of the moment, Mahomes missed on multiple throws that he normally makes. One of the most obvious examples is he missed Marquez Valdez-Scantling deep for what would have probably been a touchdown had he been hit in stride, or at least a giant gain had he been even hit, had he not overthrown the ball. He also had some underthrows, and Mahomes talked about this after the game. He said, his footwork got a little janky on him. He didn't use that word. But for lack of a better term, his footwork wasn't quite there, and it was noticeable throughout the game. His interception to Justin Simmons in the back of the end zone, if he puts that to the outside shoulder of Justin Watson, it's a harder catch for Watson. But at the same time, you don't run that risk of an interception. And usually with Mahomes, with his ball placement, he generally is very good about placing it with the margin of error away from the defender. What I mean by that is he would aim for away, for that outside shoulder of Watson. But while he does that, while he's aiming out here, if he misses, he tends to miss big over here, not over here, because over here you've got the risk of a pick. Over here, yeah, you might get an incomplete pass, but then you live to fight again on another down. And he missed an unusual way to Watson there, and that's what led to Simmons being able to come up with the pick. And it was a great play by Simmons, but honestly, the ball was probably at least 2 yards off of where Mahomes wanted it. And he was on the run. And he was moving. He was moving opposite direction. It's the type of throw he usually sticks. But he had multiple throws like that where he didn't really reset his feet before throwing, and that's what he talked about after the game. Got to get your feet right. And this has been Mahomes' his whole career. He's never had great footwork, but he's had good enough footwork for him to where he's consistently still incredibly accurate. And that was the difference in this game because, people, it's so funny. Whenever Mahomes has a single game where his accuracy is even remotely off, you see people start to climb out of the woodworks. Oh, that footwork's finally catching up to him. It's like, guys, it's been 5 years. Okay. He's very, very accurate. But for one game out of, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. It caught up to him on some throws. And so that's something I know he'll address because he has done that consistently, whether it's his movement in the pocket, whether it's his footwork in general. Anytime he's starting to have issues, it's something that he's addressed. But it's definitely something in terms of the deep ball that he's going to want to continue to really tighten up, because you've seen Valdez-Scantling really, if Mahomes is, man, if he's even a little more accurate on deep shots to Valdez-Scantling than he has been this year, you probably have an extra 200, 250 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns for Valdez-Scantling. And his role in this offense is viewed entirely different, because there's been at least 4 deep shots, more actually, probably 5 or 6, where Mahomes has just missed them. And those are huge plays, and that's part of why Valdez-Scantling is in the building. And Valdez-Scantling is a good deep threat, but he is not, Tyreek Hill. He can't compensate for when the ball isn't quite there. And it's one area where Mahomes is going to need to continue to work. I'm going to try to write about Mahomes this week and actually get back to the weekly film reviews. But I think I might try to go back and not just look at Denver, but I might look at the week before too, and really look at to see how his accuracy is doing and that sort of thing. That said, the offense was able to put enough points up to win, even on a game where, once again, had a couple of turnovers that were frustrating. Kadarius Toney had the fumble that he actually took to social media and apologized for, which is great. Fumbles happen. It is one of those interesting things where people get mad at special teams, but it's not like they don't emphasize not fumbling the ball. I really do think, though, you've reached a point with special teams where they need to start making a decision. Is this really what we want to do? Do we want to try to do we need to try to pick up extra yards on punt returns, or is the juice just not worth the squeeze at this point, because we're not seeing any big plays, but we are seeing our big plays the other way? It's something at least worth considering. That said, the defense stepped up. They gave up a touchdown after the Toney play, but the defense, as the offense was struggling, kind of having a goofy day for part of the day, the defense time after time after time stepped up, and that includes in the fourth quarter. The Broncos 100% had a chance to come back, and they couldn't. They got stopped, even when they were within a field goal. And that's why one of the things that I wrote about this week, well, the first thing I've written about so far, is Chris Jones, who once again, 1 week after I wrote about how he's closing teams out and all this stuff, once again closed out the game with a sack. But it wasn't just that; it was back-to-back plays. And so this is one of the plays that I wrote about, and it's really so important to watch what occurs here. You've got Chris Jones lining up at the end. They identified a matchup here with the right tackle that they must have really liked. But, I mean, this really, the final 2 plays of the game were singular efforts by Chris Jones. And keep in mind, right here in this moment, the Broncos, they're down 3. They have all 3 timeouts, and it's 3rd and 5. They are close to midfield. They're close to field goal range, a couple first downs away from field goal range. And they've been moving the ball and attacking the middle of the field very effectively. And what they think they're going to do here, when you look at how the Chiefs are aligned, you see you've got these trips to the left here. The majority of the defensive attention is going over here. They think they're going to pick up a slick, cheap first down with a quick handoff. And so you see with Bolton coming up here on the blitz, that means that he's not going to be taking this side. Right? He's not going to be taking either of these gaps right here to either side of the right guard. In the meantime, Justin Reed's attention is directed over here, and McDuffie and Clark are left in pursuit, but it's too far. Now, if you got Brian Cook is going to be coming in here soon, but imagine a world where Chris Jones doesn't keep his eyes up, and this is just so great here. He was going to rush, but he keeps his eyes up. He sees the ball's getting handed off, and he makes a play. He trips, and then Cook comes in and finishes him off. I love this right here. And it's so difficult to imagine had things been different. But I want you to keep watching this play, because people were kind of like, oh, Cook made a stop in the play. And Cook did come and finish him off. But this play was over. He got tripped up. He was on his way down, and Cook made sure he didn't fall forward for an extra yard or so. So Cook kept it 4th and 2. Maybe it might have been 4th and 1. But the guy who stopped this play with a terrific singular effort, this is Chris Jones making an amazing play that turned it into 4th and 2 and took Denver out of being in the driver's seat, and then suddenly put them in desperation mode. And of course, the play that everyone remembers and they should remember that came immediately after that is Chris Jones bringing down Russ Wilson, which, by the way, just a quick side note, because there was some conversation about Jones slamming him. The refs did not blow the whistle, and Russ is continuing to try to fight out of his grasp. Earlier in the game, he'd had a similar thing happen. If refs aren't going to blow the whistle, then you have to slam the quarterback, because otherwise he can wriggle free and throw the ball somewhere, and you're running the risk of a play getting made. This is on the referees. You have to blow that whistle, as frustrating as it is, like when you cheer for a team with Mahomes who wriggles his way free all the time. That can't happen, because that's the player safety thing. If you're going to protect the player safety, then that's a play you have to do it. So I wrote about Chris Jones again. You should check it out on the Chief of the North newsletter. The biggest thing there is there's no one who makes an impact like him on the defensive side of the ball, except maybe you can argue like Nick Bosa made a game-altering, a game-winning play just on Sunday night. It's with Jones, it's not just about the fact that he's at the top of the league in virtually every statistic in terms of as a pass rusher. He's right there at the top, which is so hard to do from the interior line spot. It's also the fact that he is doing it from the defensive tackle spot. It's an incredibly impressive thing. So go check that out. He's one of the storylines for this week that I think people should be talking about more and more and more. I think he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Another thing to just take a look at is the fact that the defense overall played strong on a day the offense struggled. We've seen that now. The defense had some frustrating moments, but and that middle of the field is still deeply, deeply concerning. But overall, the defense did more than enough in the first 3 quarters of that game for the offense to put it away, and the offense just didn't do it. One final thing that I do think people should be talking about a little bit more this week is Kadarius Toney. What I really like about Toney, and we've talked about this earlier in the year, is the fact that he is not just a gadget guy. He is a go up and get it guy, and this is the wrong play, and so I probably didn't mean to show you this one. But man, Chris Jones is great, isn't he? The thing about Kadarius Toney, again, he's not just a gadget guy. Yes, you have him here coming out of the backfield, but you can have him run routes down the field, and he can win with the ball in the air. He's got good ball skills, and his ability after the catch, his bounce, his strength through contact, all of that, it's so impressive. And the Chiefs have a little time before the playoffs to continue to try to loop him into the offense more and more and more. I love the idea of bringing him out of the backfield here. A lot of the looks they have for him right now are a little more gadgety in nature, and that's just because with Reed, his learning his offense, receiver in his offense is incredibly tough. You got to learn everything. And so this is just an example, I think, of what Toney brings to the table that I think the Chiefs should continue to explore. I'm excited about it. I think you should be too. Right now, though, tonight, Bengals, Bills, it's all of us. Lifetime Bengals fan here. What is it? Who Day and all that fun stuff. So we'll see how things go. It's going to be such an interesting thing. If I had my druthers, I've had people ask me this week, well, what if the Bengals win? They're going to have even more momentum heading into the playoffs, even more hype. I want the Bengals to win out, and I want them to win every game they play in the playoffs until they meet the Chiefs. I want them to meet the Chiefs again in the AFC Championship at Arrowhead, because this is one team that's kind of got something on Kansas City right now. And I want, if Kansas City goes through, wins it all this year, I want them to 100% go through the Bengals on their way to do it, because that would just be really satisfying. That's what I've got for you this week. The Chiefs are 13-3 in a year that it was supposed to be a soft reset. Yes, it's not a perfect team. They still shoot themselves in the foot too often. They need to learn to run the ball a little bit more. But 13-3 in a soft reset year, it is a great time to be a Chiefs fan. Thanks for joining me, everyone.